Your memories aren't recordings. They're rebuilt every time you remember. And the first time I truly understood that, I felt something shift inside me. Because I used to believe my past was solid, like a locked archive, like a folder I could open and see the truth. But memory doesn't work like that. Memory is not a video file. It's not a photograph. It's not a perfect replay. It's closer to a story. And every time I tell it, I change it. Even if I don't want to. Even if I swear I'm being honest. Because the brain doesn't store experiences like a camera. It stores fragments, a face, a sound, a feeling, a moment of fear, a moment of warmth. And later, when I remember, my mind rebuilds the scene using whatever pieces still exist, not to show me what happened, but to help me make sense of who I am. That's the part most people miss. Memory isn't designed to preserve truth. It's designed to preserve identity, to keep my story coherent, to keep my world stable. And that means my mind will sometimes fill the gaps with guesses, with assumptions, with emotion, with whatever version of reality makes me feel safe. Or at least, makes me feel certain. And certainty can be addictive, because uncertainty feels like danger. So my brain takes the broken pieces and creates a whole. It creates meaning, even if that meaning is wrong. I started noticing it in small ways. I would remember a conversation and be completely sure someone said something. But then they'd look at me and say, "I never said that." And at first, I'd get defensive, because it felt like they were denying my reality. But slowly, I realized something uncomfortable. Maybe I wasn't remembering. Maybe I was reconstructing. And the reconstruction felt real, because it was built out of my emotions. And emotions are powerful. They color everything. If I'm anxious, I remember the past is colder. If I'm lonely, I remember old moments as warmer. If I'm angry, I remember people as crueler. If I feel guilty, I remember myself as worse. And if I finally feel safe, I remember the same life, as if it was never that bad. So, which memory is true? The painful one, or the peaceful one? Maybe neither, or maybe both, in different ways. Because memory isn't a courtroom. It doesn't exist to deliver evidence. It exists to keep me moving, to protect me, to guide me. That's why trauma changes memory so much. When something hurts deeply, my mind doesn't store it normally. Sometimes it becomes too sharp, like a blade I keep touching. Other times it disappears, like my brain locked it away. Not because it didn't happen, but because it was too much to hold. And then, years later, one smell, one song, one look, one place, and suddenly it comes back. Not as a story, as a feeling. And feelings don't return gently. They return like weather. They return like storms. That's why people say, "I don't know why I feel this way," but the body remembers, even when the mind doesn't. Because memory isn't stored only in thoughts. It's stored in patterns, in triggers, in tension, in avoidance, in the way I hesitate before I speak, in the way my chest tightens for no clear reason, in the way I expect danger, even when I'm safe. And the strangest part is, my brain can turn a single memory into an entire personality. One humiliation, one betrayal, one moment of abandonment, and suddenly I become someone who anticipates pain, someone who prepares for loss, someone who doesn't trust closeness, not because it will happen again, but because the brain hates surprise. It would rather predict a threat that doesn't exist than miss a threat that does. So it edits my memories, so I'll behave differently in the future. I used to think memory was about the past. Now I see it's about the future. Memory is not just a reflection. It's a warning system, a survival tool, a map built by emotion. And if the emotion is distorted, the map becomes distorted too. That's how people can remember the same childhood in completely different ways. Two siblings, same house, same parents, and one remembers love and the other remembers fear. And both are telling the truth from inside their nervous system. So when someone tells me, that didn't happen like that, I don't automatically fight them anymore. I pause, I breathe, and I ask myself something quieter. Am I remembering the event? Or am I remembering the feeling it left behind? Because sometimes, the event doesn't matter as much as the imprint. And sometimes, the imprint is what keeps me trapped. Not in the past, but in a reconstructed version of it. And that reconstruction becomes the lens I use to see everything, even today, even now. Once I saw that memory is reconstruction, I started noticing something else. My memories weren't only inaccurate sometimes, they were also selective. My brain kept certain scenes on repeat. Not the best ones, not the calm ones, but the ones that had emotional weight, regret, embarrassment, fear, shame. It was like my mind believed, if I replay it enough, I can prevent it from happening again. But it never prevents anything. It only keeps me stuck. And here's the cruel illusion. The more I replay a memory, the more certain it feels. Because repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity feels like truth. But what if it's not truth? What if it's just a story I've practiced too many times? There's a concept psychologists talk about called memory reconsolidation. It's a simple idea, but it changes everything. When I remember something, I'm not just viewing it, I'm reopening it. And when a memory is reopened, it becomes editable, like wet cement. And when it closes again, it hardens into a new shape. Meaning, every time I remember my past, I update it, I rewrite it, I modify the edges, I swap details, I intensify certain parts, I soften others, and I usually don't notice, because the rewrite happens silently. And the scariest part is, I can unintentionally create false memories just by thinking about something the wrong way too many times. Not because I'm lying, not because I'm crazy, but because the brain is not built to be a historian. It's built to be a storyteller. It wants a clear plot. It wants a reason. It wants a villain. It wants an explanation, because random pain is intolerable. So the mind turns chaos into narrative. It turns confusion into certainty. It turns fragments into a script. And once there is a script, I begin living by it. I begin reacting based on what I think happened, not based on what is happening now. That's how relationships break, because I'm not seeing the person in front of me. I'm seeing someone from my past. I'm hearing my old wound inside their voice. And even if they mean no harm, my nervous system recognizes a pattern and triggers the memory. But not the factual memory, the emotional memory. And emotional memory feels like reality, even when reality is safe. This is how fear survives. It borrows the face of the present, but it's made from the past. And if I don't notice it, I start building my whole life around protection, not living, protecting. I avoid certain places, certain conversations, certain types of people. I shrink my world because my memory tells me, last time you were open, you got hurt, so don't open again. But then I realize something deeper. If memory is reconstruction, then healing is reconstruction too. Because I don't have to be trapped inside my brain's first draft. I can rewrite the meaning, not by pretending the pain didn't happen, but by letting the past change shape. This is where awareness becomes power. Because the moment I see a memory as a story, I stop treating it as a sentence. I stop treating it as a prophecy. I stop treating it as identity. I begin to treat it as information, imperfect, emotional, unfinished. And when the mind says, "This always happens," I ask, does it? Or am I replaying the same scene and calling it life? When the mind says, "People can't be trusted," I ask, is that truth? Or is that the reconstruction of one betrayal painted over everything else? When the mind says, "I'm not enough," I ask, who taught me to remember myself this way? And that question changes the energy, because it shifts me from believing to observing, and observation breaks the spell. You can't rewrite a story if you don't realize you're inside one. And that's the tragedy of memory. It feels like reality, but it's often a version shaped by fear, a version shaped by survival, a version shaped by the brain trying to protect me, by keeping me predictable, even if predictable is miserable, even if predictable is lonely, even if predictable is false. And that's why two people can remember the same event and become two different adults. One becomes rigid, one becomes soft, one becomes aggressive, one becomes numb. Because memory isn't about what happened, it's about what we decided it meant. And sometimes the decision was made in panic. Sometimes it was made at an age where we didn't have the words. Sometimes it was made in silence, with nobody to correct it. So the story stayed, the reconstruction stayed, and we grew up inside it. Until one day, we finally see it, and we finally say, wait, maybe this isn't the whole truth. Maybe this is just the version my brain built, so I could survive. And survival is not the same as living, so I don't need perfect memory. I need clean awareness. I need to notice when the past hijacks the present. I need to feel the emotion without worshiping the story, because I can respect my pain without letting it define my future. And that is the real power, not remembering more, but remembering differently, seeing the past without being trapped inside it. Because yes, memory is not the past, it's a reconstruction. And sometimes the most painful thing is living inside a false version. Observe, reflect, awaken.